Hello, everyone. This is Pro Football Explorer here. We're right now going to do another segment of game picks for week two. Week one, as you see on the screen, I went 9-6-1, and yes, I do include ties in my records. So, with that said, let's begin. Let's go with the Chargers and Chiefs. This one's actually going to be the most intriguing game to watch. Uh, Chargers coming off a nice win against the Raiders. Justin Herbert threw 3 touchdowns against them, no interceptions. Patrick Mahomes showing why he is still Patrick Mahomes. And this one is actually more interesting that Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes are playing against each other in Arrowhead, where Herbert is 2-0 against Mahomes in his career. Um, well, 1-1. No, 1-2 against Mahomes because he didn't play week 17 before the 17 game schedule. I do think that the Chiefs may end up taking advantage of the Chargers without Keenan Allen. Uh, do think Herbert can make this a game still, but I think after watching how the Chiefs played against the Cardinals, I think I have a little more faith in Mahomes um, than Herbert. But I do think this will be a very high scoring game, maybe like a 41-38. Dolphins and the Ravens. This one's a really tough game to indicate as to who's going to be the one that flinches first. Miami did shut down the Patriots for the most part, except for allowing 1 touchdown. But other than that, they really dismantled the Patriots in Miami. Ravens, I think I would say basically uh, they played the Jets. They really played the Jets. And it went down as almost expected that the Ravens would win by more than 10 points. With that said, it's hard to say about like if the Dolphins really played against a contending team like the Patriots, or they uh or that was actually how they're going to be. Ravens, they did shut down just for pretty much the most part. I'm actually going to go with Baltimore in this one. I think this will most likely be a defensive showdown for the most part. And I'm going to say that they'll probably win this one 26-20. Jets Browns. The Jets, man, the Jets. They're still starting Joe Flacco, and he has to go against the talented, I would say mostly talented Cleveland Browns team. That's sketchy at quarterback, but he did good enough job to keep the Browns afloat to win their first game of the year, first time since 2004. I really don't have much faith in the Jets for the most part, so I'm going with the Browns. Uh, I would thought that the Jets would have put up a little bit more points than just 9. Just the fact that it could have been garbage time points. But with that said, I do think that the Browns do win this game pretty much handily. I think, as I said, the Jets may score some meaningless touchdowns. Commanders, Lions. This one, this one's kind of a little bit tricky, but I think when you watch both these teams play, the Commanders, they had some boneheaded turnovers, and the Lions, I've said this already before. The defense was very sketchy against Philadelphia. I still think that defense is going to be sketchy against the Commanders. So I'm taking the Commanders in this one. And I'm not going to say convincingly. Detroit did nearly come back in the game. So let me see. Nah, 27-24. Colts, Jaguars. I don't know what the hell did I just watch from the Colts game. I seriously do not know what the hell did I just watch. Is Indianapolis just hanging on by a thread, or they're just like, you know, gonna be losing, like losing or tying to these weaker teams? Houston wasn't bad. They held their own for 17 points, but then they just didn't do nothing for the majority afterwards, and they just cut their kicker too. Now, I don't want to go into the Kool-Aid of going with the Jaguars and knowing the fact that they do not have a lot of talent on the defense. The team in general is not that great. But after many times, many mistakes, I have to go with Duval again because Indianapolis cannot win in Jacksonville for the life of them. Uh, they've lost with Andrew Luck, Jacoby Brissett, Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz. Actually, you know what? For some reason, they just end up losing there. Buccaneers Saints. Buccaneers did not play the perfect game offense, but they definitely played really well on defense. But that's mostly against Dallas with no wide receiver outside of CeeDee Lamb on that day. And the run game actually looked a lot better from years past, from Jameis Winston, Ryan Fitzpatrick, last couple of years with Tom Brady. It looks very solid. I would like to pick them because the Saints really kind of struggled against Atlanta, but I think for some reason the Saints will have their magic again against Tampa. So I think this will most likely happen, a 26-21 game. I will say for New Orleans is of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is like the main reason why they haven't won, why they haven't lost the Buccaneers thus far. That's interesting, but again, this is just a weird game, a weird game and a weird matchup. Panthers Giants. This one's tough because Baker did not really have the best game. It was almost like watching, almost like a Tim Tebow, and I say this as a Broncos fan, that it's been ugly for the first three quarters, and then all of a sudden the fourth quarter they have a lot of magic in them. It's just very random. And the Giants, I'm very surprised they won against the Titans. I think after the Saquon Barkley 68-yard run against Tennessee, that really put a lot of energy into the G-men. This one is a really tough one in terms of like, do I trust Baker Mayfield's fourth quarter comeback, near comeback actually, or do I trust the Giants that had a nice resurgence against a contending first seed in the conference last year, Titans? I'm going to take a chance on the Giants. I think the Panthers are still a very sloppy team. Even without Kayvon and Alzir Aljalari for the G-Men, I do think that the Giants can pull it off, but I think it's going to be a very ugly game. That's for sure. Patriots, Steelers. A lot of people would say that after what happened to the Patriots on Sunday against the Dolphins, is that they're going to get destroyed by the Steelers. I actually think the opposite. The offense was very sputtering, very inconsistent. Even though they didn't really had a lot of mistakes in terms of turnovers, but it's not consistent. And the Patriots, I'm not gonna throw them off the bandwagon while Mac Jones struggled against Miami, but I think that's mostly the Patriots struggling in Miami, mostly in general during the Belichick era. So I'm actually taking the Patriots over the Steelers because they do not have TJ Watt, and that defense was not as solid without it. So I'm taking the Patriots. I'm going to say pretty much a close game. Um, yeah, that's about right. 24-21. Falcons, Rams. If you would have asked me back in April, May about which team would be 0-1 and which team would be 0-1 and Falcons would have been expected, but the Rams being 0-1 is a little bit of a surprise. And it's actually weird saying, the 0-1 Rams going up against the 0-1 Falcons, especially in the Sean McVay era. The Falcons did look interesting for the most part. After going up 26-10, they blew the lead, as Falcons do. I just don't see that near, I would say, very fundamental team. Like, Atlanta did not look that bad as I would have imagined with Marcus Mariota. They looked very solid for the most part. But you're going up against the Rams. They may not have their starting center. Guards are questionable. Run game is very questionable. But I'm still going to take the Rams in this one. I would say they probably would smoke them for the most part. And I might go into that idea that they could mostly smoke them. But I don't think they played against anyone like Aaron Donald's caliber. Mostly in the interior. And the Falcons, I'm a little bit skeptical on that still. Seahawks, 49ers. Now, it's actually a hard game to tell. Geno Smith had basically almost his best game against the Broncos on Monday night. The 49ers with Trey Lance did not look that good, but they played in a monsoon. Run game is going to be a little bit questionable without Elijah Mitchell, who's going to be out for 2 months. Again, do I really think Geno Smith is the guy that could take down the 49ers? He has not played against the 49ers as a Seahawk. Surprise even for the idea that they haven't even think about benching Russ for Geno. I do think the Hawks have a little bit more talent on the offense, and Geno Smith did look good, but I don't know if it's going to be sustainable. So I'm taking the 49ers, knowing that it's not going to be a monsoon like it was in Chicago. So I'm going with the 49ers, but I'm actually going to say it's going to come down really close. But I do think the Hawks are going to be an interesting team to watch. Bengals, Cowboys. I really don't have to say much about this game, and I really do not. Dak Prescott's out. You could say Micah Parsons is there. Cooper Rush may have more of an idea in the offense, but do you really trust him for, I don't know, a month and a half of the season? And the Bengals are going to be coming into Dallas all pissed off, so I'm taking the Bengals. And I don't think it's going to be much of a close game. Maybe some garbage time points. Actually, not. They were dreadful without Amari Cooper before, and they're going to be dreadful without Dak. Texans, Broncos. As previous mentioned, I am a Denver fan. You see the stuff behind me. I am extremely disappointed in our head coach not trusting Russell Wilson of all QBs to get a 4th and 5. And I'll be honest, I did not have an issue with the clock running down as far as it did. More of it is that you would have think that Russell Wilson can get 5 yards and they can just use a timeout and you get a game-winning field goal. That's not my issue. My issue is that this team looked awful as a defense, undisciplined. For crying out loud, we have Russell Wilson. Let him sling it in the red zone instead of having both running backs fumble the damn ball. Just like, is this like almost like watching a meme of Super Bowl 49 where they thought, let's run the ball up with our running backs at the 1 yard line? Like, seriously? Like, that's not going to be anything predictable? So, I would like to think that Denver does have a shot against Houston, but Houston really shows that they can put up some points. Davis Mills really looks solid as a quarterback. Just, the second half, or after having a big lead of, 16 plus points, Jesus, do we have a shot at least? And I'm going to go into the Broncos well again. Just more on the fact that I don't think Houston is going to be, holding that lead. If they do, credit to them. But for Denver, you better get your act together. But I'm not going to say this game is going to be a blowout. I'm going to say that this game is going to be incredibly close. Cardinals Raiders. This one is actually the most hardest to predict. Arizona did not look good as a defense, mostly because playing Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, and any team's defense is not going to play that well. Maybe outside of Tennessee. But other than that, Cardinals did not look that good. They were trailing 37-7 before putting up some garbage time points and yards. The Raiders, on the other hand, had a real close chance of winning, but they really had no interest running the football. They have some interesting backs. Josh Jacobs, Brandon Bolden, who's not bad if used right, and Zamir White, who I think could be a good third down option for speed. I do think that looking at this game, I do think that they have a shot, as in the Cardinals may have a shot at the and I just actually want to be sure with who I had, because doing it this long, I'm a little bit forgetful, but either way, I'm not trusting the Raiders defense against Arizona. I think they may bounce back. So I'm taking the Cardinals over the Raiders. Sketchy defense of the Cardinals may bite them. Hopefully they may have something up their sleeve. But I do think this one can be a close one, even though I did say that with the Chiefs and Cardinals last week. I do think this one might be more of a closer game. Just have to see how that goes. Packers Bears. My big question as to what the hell was Green Bay doing, and I'm not talking about the offense. The offense was going to be struggling, regardless without Devontae Adams. That was no surprise. But the defense, what the hell was that? Letting Justin Jefferson open as much as they did? Like, Jesus, man. The Packers have a good cast of defensive players with Savage, Amos, Alexander, Douglas. They couldn't just allow they couldn't just allow the Vikings to just like walk all over them like that. Just to be sure, yeah. 27-21 was my idea, thinking Green Bay could run the football, but it's all spurts, but the passing game was just dreadful. Chicago did play in a monsoon. While it's a very good victory for them against the team that was so close to the Super Bowl, I'm going to lean into Green Bay on this one. And I really kind of think this game is going to get really sloppy. So, that's about right. Titans Bills. This one should be a fun one. Now, I'm wrong on the Buffalo Bills. I know. But I was close. I got their points right, saying they have 31. They are a very dangerous team now with Von Miller. Oh boy, that is a very interesting one to see. Um, my big question is like, what's up with the Bills whenever they play the Titans? They always like are a step back. Maybe it's because they played in Tennessee in the last two meetings where they got one obliterated the first time, and then the other one they blew a lead. And while I do think Tennessee does have the credentials to just dismantle the Bills for some reason, this is going to be a very new environment. It's a very new defense. Um, I would like to think my emotions may get the best of me in terms of like the Titans losing to the Giants should be an instant loss for them against a team like Buffalo. I'm gonna lean into Buffalo more into that. It's their home stadium. Defense looked a lot better. Um, Kyle Phillips did show up for Tennessee. He was so close to getting that game. He got him into field goal range, but I do think that the Bills may have a better shot because they're at home and not on the road. So I'm giving the Buffalo Bills the advantage. I'm going to say 38-28 because Tennessee did not really look that good, and Derrick Henry looks really slow. Uh, on that front because he did not look like his normal self. He looked very slow. He really just like couldn't get away from the Giants defense. How the Buffalo Bills are, they'll catch up with him. Vikings, Eagles. Now, this one's a tough one. This is a very tough one. In terms of that the Vikings looked interesting against Green Bay. They really held them to 7 points, but I'm kind of having a hard time figuring out if that's mostly Aaron Rodgers not trusting his receivers or or they just really look flat as Packers offense is going to look like without Adams. The Eagles did play against the Detroit team, but they nearly lost it if they didn't convert in a fourth down. I'm going to lean into Philadelphia in this one. I think that with the wide receiver room being the way that it is, Minnesota did not really play against a good passing team. I just don't think they played a good passing team, knowing that it's, Green Bay without Adams and without Lazard too, and some pieces on their offensive line. I think Philadelphia will probably surprise them for the most part. I do think this might be a close game of a 34-31 game. All right, that is all of my predictions for this week, week 2. There are a couple of games where I'm a little bit skeptical on. Mainly Giants Panthers, Cardinals Raiders, Titans Bills, and maybe the 49ers and the Seahawks. But other than that, I do think that this is where I'm sticking with. And with that said, I hope you guys enjoy just seeing where my thoughts are with the NFL teams. Do find me on Twitter at Pro Football Explorer, Pro FB Explorer. Find me on Facebook with the same name and YouTube. Please subscribe, comment on anything that you may or may not agree with. All right. Peace.